Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a video. It's funny. I had the fleeting thought the other day. I was like, I wonder if I'm ever going to run out of stuff to react to. And then I see these new videos popping up, and I'm like, oh no, there will never be a shortage. So really quick, I just wanted to say I've already had a few people reach out to me. Some people just telling me their stories. Some people requesting to be interviewed. I really do appreciate that, guys. Down in the description, let me see if I can flash it really quick here on the thing. Let me just try to get this thing to flash. Well, can I get it to flash? Is it going to work for me? Desert, spring, da da da. Okay. Okay, so let me see if I can get it to flash across the screen. Boom. Oh, you can kind of see it. It kind of got cut off. Anyways, that's my email. If you'd like to reach out to me, if you have any questions, if you just want to share with me your story, if you want to be interviewed, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to chat. We've already done one episode, and I have a couple of others that are scheduled. I had one that was scheduled to today, but some stuff came up, so we pushed it off to next Sunday. But today I'm just going to be doing a reaction video to a couple of things. So down in the description box, you'll see there's kind of an email in case you didn't catch the little flash. There's down in an email, and you can send me your email. Send me an email. I'd like to know your story. I'd like to know kind of what you're dealing with, what you're struggling with. If there's anything that I can help with, I'm always here to help. I love helping you guys. As far as wanting to be on the show, reach out to me and let me know your story, kind of thing, and we can put together some date. But I've already had so many people who've just kind of shown, kind of explained to me what things that they're going for, and I'm so compassionate to these people. Because it's just like, man, a lot of the stuff that they've mentioned, I was like, oh man, I've been there and done that. It sucks. So, because the thing is, Christianity. I grew up independent fundamental Baptist, and it was a literalist interpretation of the Bible, all that kind of jazz, and it genuinely was like the worst thing for my psyche. Ruined my first marriage, and the reason why I say it ruined my first marriage is because, technically speaking, my first marriage was like a biblical first marriage, but when the guy's in control, it was a shit show to say the least, but. I definitely wouldn't recommend anybody have a biblical first marriage. Definitely wouldn't recommend that. But yeah. So let's go ahead and get into the video here. So what we've got is the Buddhists, the Buddhist monks that have walked for peace. They're doing a walk for peace for DC. They started the walk for peace for DC kind of during a lot of the deportations. Whenever they started the whole, I'm not trying to get political about anything. I genuinely don't care about political opinions. It is as far as the way I grew up in the fundamental Baptist church. We grew up insanely conservative, like super hard right conservative, all that kind of crap. And I basically remained that until I deconstructed away from Christianity. And now I just don't really get involved with politics. I'm not opposed to talking about politics, but I don't necessarily have a political opinion. For me, I just, I take everybody at face value and just kind of, assess them. But, it's pretty crazy. But in general, I try not to get in politics. Politics and religion tend to be the two things that are pretty sensitive topics. I couldn't imagine trying to handle politics and religion on a single channel. That would be crazy. But I'm a business owner. And so I'm compassionate to the struggles of the small business owner that a lot of people don't see, because a lot of small business owners, even if we do just have a couple of employees, tend to get lumped into the idea that we're these big, massive corporations making stupid amounts of money. And it's like, yeah, we're turning a lot of money, but what I'm keeping is hardly anything compared to, to some of these big organizations. Like the last company we were turning around, honestly, it was a really small operation, but we were turning maybe 8,000 a month, something like that. $8,000 a month, which is not a lot of money. And the profits from that $8,000 a month was only around $1,200 a month, sometimes a little bit less, just depending on expenses, if stuff would come up or if we had to purchase equipment or whatever. But yeah, it was pretty slim pickings for the profitability in general. So I'm compassionate towards the business owner, because then we get hit with all the stupid taxation, and then on top of we have a self-employment tax. So in other words, if you grind it and you work for yourself, you have to pay additional taxes on top of what everybody else has to pay. So if you just work for an employer, you just pay your basic, your W-2. You get a refund at the end of the year of the taxes that you paid into the IRS. If you're a self-employer, you pay all the same taxes that everybody else pays, but then you pay an additional 15%, 14% just for being an employer, just for working for yourself, which I absolutely hate. I think it's the most unfair thing for small businesses. It makes getting a business off the ground an uphill battle, and they've genuinely made it to where it's like super, super hard to start anything just because of the taxation, the permits, and all that kind of stuff. So I am compassionate to those ideas and systems. But the problem is that whenever you're compassionate to one side, it's like they try to lump you into this whole thing, and it's like, okay, well, I don't support all that, But yeah, we're not going to get into politics. So today we're getting into religion. So these people, the monks, I want to say it was when Trump started the whole ICE raid thing, where he started to deport a ton of people. It was causing a lot of craziness. These monks decided to take it upon themselves to go and basically do a walk, and they're walking from somewhere in Texas, I want to say is where they started. They might have started in like Dallas or something. I don't remember, but they're walking from there all the way to DC, and it's basically a walk for peace. Okay, I support it. I think it's a great thing with all the shit that's going on in the world. I think that peace is not a bad thing to walk for. So with that, let's get into the video, because I have not seen this video. This is a blind reaction again, but basically it says Buddhist monks confronted by angry Christian protesters. Angry Christian protesters. So let's see what that means. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get this playing here.
Prisoner for in hell. I remember the burning in Saigon in 63.
The Buddhist monks have been walking for peace, as of this taping, for 73 days.
Okay, guys, I'm just going to give you guys a heads up. It looks like my keyboard died, and I can't change my camera view anymore, so I'm going to be stuck with this camera view for the remainder of the video, so I'm just letting you guys know. So I won't be able to kind of like change up my view for the remainder of the video until I change out the batteries on my keyboard. Sorry. Can I change it? No, I can't do anything. Nope. So I'm stuck with this view for the rest of the video, but that's not a problem. Let's go ahead and just get into it.
The stories we have seen have been life-changing if one were to simply have a soul. Sadly, they would encounter this.
No man can come to the Father.
So,
Says anyone that tries to come in a different way.
let us do the thing that we're supposed to do.
Christ has come to
Okay.
set you free.
Nothing in this world
In case you can't hear in the video, basically there's some guy on a PA phone standing in the back shouting at the Buddhists that they're going to burn in hell and that they're in the wrong religion, even though they're doing this very compassionate thing, this very thing that humanity needs right now, considering all the kind of chaos that we're seeing with Venezuela, with Greenland, and with the ice raids and all this kind of stuff inside the United States. You know, with all this crazy shit that's going on, these people are walking for peace, which is what I would say the majority of Americans would support. But then they've got these people out there in PA systems. You guys are going to burn in hell. You need to convert. You can only come to Jesus one way and all this kind of crazy crap, right? So in case you couldn't hear it, there is a guy in the background with a PA shouting basically the Romans road at these people that everybody's going to go to hell unless they convert to Christianity. So here we go.
Everything will be fine. We are not here to fight anybody. Okay? We are here to fight ourselves. The biggest enemies in this world is not the people outside. The biggest enemy in this world is our inner self, our mind, our thought.
And that is, I have to 100% agree with that. I think that the reason why a lot of this stuff happens is because, you know, whenever I was deconstructing from Christianity, I kind of didn't have any direction to go into. And so there was this period of time where I was just lost. And I you know, I was straight up depressed. I didn't know what direction to go to. I didn't necessarily know what to believe anymore. And I just kind of felt like, okay, well, this is just what life is, and I'm just going to, you know, get through it the best I can. Try my best to have a good life, but also I just really don't care, you know. But you know, there's a lot of inner things that in Christianity people don't deal with. So even just what this Buddhist monk just said in a couple of things, we're here to fight. We're not here to fight with people on the outside. We're here to fight our inner selves. Is what he's talking about is our inner tendencies to want to control. It's our inner shadows. It's our inner demonic state, right? Even though Christians don't apply demons that way, I tend to apply demons that way, of these darker urges that we have to want to try to control people, or to want to try to take away from something, or to say, oh, you know, you have this thing and it belongs to me, so I'm going to force myself and take what I want from you, you know, like these kind of urges that we have. And so the whole idea of you're fighting your inner self, right? It's the idea that, you know, this is a really dark kind of analogy, but for instance, you know, you're sitting at a table with a guy who's got a Rolex, a Lamborghini, and a beautiful house and all this kind of stuff, and you're sitting at this table, and you have, you know, some sort of weapon that you could basically, you know, kill that person and take all of his possessions, right? So, you know, there is going to be the temptation, and this is what the Buddhist monk is talking about, is that you're going to have that inner temptation to want to take that knife and, you know, take care of this guy so that you can be the one in possession of the Rolex watch and the fancy Lamborghini and the nice house and all this kind of crap, right? But it comes from our inside urges that we perceive as these like darker urges, right? And so, not getting too far into it, the question is, why do these urges exist to begin with? Well, these urges exist because we have this thought that we aren't whole. That's what it comes down to. We have this thought, this idea planted in our heads that we're not whole, and that we need something to be whole, right? So, for instance, let's say you're out there and you're in the dating marketplace, right? And you're trying to find a date, okay? And you are showing up to a date, but you sit next to this really fancy guy, right? And you're trying to have your date, you're trying to enjoy your date, but this guy right next to you is clearly just in a different income bracket, right? It's being able to sit in that space with understanding that just because he has all of these possessions doesn't make him a bad person, but it also means that you can see the faults in you, the insecurities that I don't have what he has, so I'm not worthy, right? It's kind of looking outside of you, trying to figure out what is outside of you that you can take in to kind of fill this void that all of us seem to come default settings. I had somebody put in the comments default settings, and I thought that was funny. But our kind of default setting is this sense of longing, but it's an insatiable thirst. It's something that's never, it can't ever be quenched, right? I remember whenever I initially started in business, I used to think to myself, if I could only have like $10,000 in the bank account, I would feel safe. I would feel like I finally had money and all this kind of stuff. If I could only have 10,000 in the bank account. And then eventually I hit that point where I had 10,000 in the bank account, and guess what? I didn't feel safe. Right? And then I moved the bar. Okay, if I could only had $20,000 in the bank account, then I'll feel safe, because 20,000, I mean, that's a lot of money. And so then I eventually get to the point where I have that much money in the bank account. Guess what? I still don't feel safe. Right? And I kept just moving the goalpost until I had noticed myself repeating the pattern of, it didn't change the fact that, no, I just don't feel safe because I don't feel safe. And there's no digit that's going to be inside of the bank account. There's no thing that's going to be outside of me. There's nothing out there that I'm going to be able to find and take onto myself that's going to make me feel safe. So I just need to deal with my sense of safety. And so whenever I decided to go in and deal with my sense of safety, what I found out is that ever since I was a child, I never felt safe, period. Because I grew up in a chaotic household where my dad was basically this big, massive, domineering monster that would go off like a bomb if you accidentally walked outside without your shoes on or some shit like that, right? Or, my mom was this like super, kind of reactive. You said the wrong thing, you'd have a stapler flying through the air at your head. And this is like in the days of the metal stapler, not like the little plastic stapler that weighs, no, we're talking about that honkin' fucking 2-pound stapler being thrown across the room. And when that's happening to you because you're 7 years old, you are built in with this sense of not having safety. And so for me, I didn't get to the point to where I eventually had to get to the point to where I accepted that about myself, that that my safety issues, my issues of feeling safe, have nothing to do with my exterior environment. They have nothing to do with my external environment, nothing to do with the amount of dollars that I have in my bank account. Now, obviously, we all have to have enough money to live, right? But there is a certain point where the amount of money that's in the bank just doesn't really matter. And but that it was only me who could give myself that sense of safety, right? And so that's when you start getting into a lot of the inner child healing and stuff like that, therapy session, all that kind of crap. But and some of you guys, I've gotten emails, some of you guys are going in that direction. I'm incredibly proud of you guys. I mean, it's a hard direction to go into, but you look at why you are that way instead of just saying, I want to take this country, or I want to take that country, or I want to do this, I want to do that. Look inside, and why do you feel those urges? Where did that come from, right? And yeah, so that's just something that I kind of quickly just wanted to mention. But yeah, whenever he's saying that we're not fighting with somebody outside of ourselves, we're fighting with somebody inside of ourselves. In the Christian perspective, what they're fighting with is their sense of safety, because since they were children, I can attest to this because I grew up Christian. Ever since I was literally, I could even remember, right? I've always been in a church ever since I could even remember things. And that sense of you are going to burn in hell if you're not in the religion has been instilled in me since I was a child. And that was instilled in me and reinforced by my society, or my social circles, I should say, rather. It was reinforced by my social circles, every single one of my social circles, for almost 20 years. So to step out of that, it triggers a lot of fear, right? But that's what people have inside, and that's the reason why they're so passionate about trying to preach and all this kind of stuff, is because they're coming from a good place. They're coming from a place of care about you and you not wanting to send your soul to hell and not wanting to be. But, just because somebody convinced you that, human sacrifice, for whatever reason, right? Animal sacrifice for ritual, just because somebody convinces you that it's okay and you've been doing it ever since you were a child, doesn't mean that it's morally right, right? I mean, everybody knows that if I take a baseball bat and I beat my neighbor, sorry about that. Everybody knows that if I take a baseball bat and I beat my neighbor, that's not right. Now, if my neighbor did something that warrants some sort of justice, then okay. Then yeah, something should be done, but beating my neighbor with a baseball bat is not the justice that needs to be served, right? In that situation. And so everybody can see these things and just know that they're morally wrong, which is why when these Buddhists are walking for peace, they had so much support from everybody, because everybody understands that this is what we need. To be frank, this is what we need. But from the Christian perspective, it is one of the biggest works of the devil because they're Buddhists. That's the perspective. Because they're Buddhists and they're walking for peace, well, true peace can only be found in Jesus Christ. True peace can only be found in the Spirit. So how is it that these people who are outside of Christianity, who are outside of, outside of the faith, how can they be walking for peace when peace can only be found in Christianity? Right? This is why you get these situations where these people are out here on the megaphones screaming at Buddhists who are, to be frank, incredibly more devoted to this idea of peace than Christians, right? But yeah, I saw an image of the day, and I'm sure it was satire, but it was an image where there was an ICE agent who on one side, Trump was hugging him, and on the other side, Jesus was hugging him. And I'm just like, oh my God. The taking of religion and making it politically, and some of you guys may not agree with this, but certainly here in the South, we see it all the time where it's like, religion isn't sected toward a specific political affiliation, but people try to take it and make it into a specific political affiliation. So it is pretty funny in general. But anyways, back to the video. Oops. Move. There it is.
So let everybody say whatever they want to say, because it's freedom they want to say, because it's freedom, right? We just have to fight ourselves to purify our mind. We're not here trying to convert anybody or trying to persuade anybody to come with us. We are here for just one mission together, to have peace for our own, to have peace for...
Near Good Hope, Georgia, the monks were met by Christian protesters, some of which were shared via Classic City News on Facebook.
You gotta turn to Christ. He's the only way. He's true. You don't love him, you don't have Jesus. If you don't have Christ, it is. It's about Jesus. He's the only way. If he's the only way, the only truth, and all life. It does matter. Your soul is on the line. Right? Your soul is on the line. We don't walk and we are talking about anything. Your soul, you are. When you do your chant, your little ritual, you're spreading it. And if your peace is not rooted in Christ, then it's false peace. And I love you enough to tell you that. I love you and your fellow monks to tell you that what you're doing is you're walking your way to hell, and I don't want that for you. No.
Oh, you're walking your way to hell. I just, I don't know what to say about this. It's no, but this is my point. The Christian who's out here trying to convert this Buddhist monk, he is completely convinced that his religion is the right religion. Now, you guys have seen plenty of my other reaction videos where we watch a Christian tell a Catholic that they're going to hell, where we watch a Church of Christ tell a Baptist that they're going to hell, where we've watched, a Baptist tell a Mormon that they're going to hell, where we've watched a Seventh-day Adventist tell Church of Christ they're going to hell. I mean, even within the sides of Christianity, there is no peace. There is no this overdeveloping consistency throughout all the different denominations. And there's also there's no certainty of heaven in all those denominations, because how can you have full certainty in your belief when a person who has the exact same book that you have in your hand, who's reading the exact same scriptures that are inside the exact same book that you have in your hand, is telling you that because you read the wrong parts of the Bible and that you're interpreting those specific parts of the Bible incorrectly, that you indeed have the false interpretation and that you're going to burn in hell. This is where Christians typically will start to fall back on, well, this is what I believe in my heart and soul. This is what God has revealed to me. Okay, well, now we're looking at, revelations from God, and those can be wildly inconsistent. And I'm not opposed to taking revelations from God. The only thing that I ask is that if we are going to accept revelations from God as a genuine thing that we're going to interpret as fact, then we should look at all of the other people and all the other religions and all of the other stories that supposedly have revelations from God, right? Because the idea, Mormonism has revelations from God. Seventh-day Adventists have revelations from God, and Pentecostal people, when they're speaking in tongues, that's revelations from God, right? So one person can speak in tongues but doesn't know what he's saying, and then you have a person who has the gift of interpretation, and so then the person who interprets, the person goes out there and speaks in tongues and just goes halalala, and the next person is saying, this is what that person is saying, where it says, I want to say Paul might have said, maybe it was Paul, maybe it wasn't Paul, I don't remember. But there's a part in the Bible where it says, if you don't know what you're saying, then just do it in a closet so nobody's looking, with the idea that speaking in tongues is discouraged from happening openly, right? And so because of those massive inconsistencies, this guy's a Christian and he's genuinely concerned about this monk's soul. And but here's the thing, he has drank the Kool-Aid. He is convinced that, and there's a lot of atheists out there that believe this too. And I'm not going to, I don't agree with it. I don't think that evidence that we have supports it, but I also understand that those what do you call it? The scientific field of study doesn't exist here in the West because it's seen as taboo, and the premise is that it's already false. So we can't even look into reincarnation here in the States because the starting premise is that this is stupid and it's completely false and it doesn't exist, right? But when you go to the East, they're more open-minded. They start with the premise of this is potentially possible. And so they go and they interview thousands of children who have come back with these past life memories, and they go and they actually will chart that person's life and go and find evidence, and they've found thousands and thousands and thousands. Now, here's the thing about science. If it happens 1, 2, or 3 times, okay, maybe it can be coincidence. If it happens 5 to 7 times, maybe it can be coincidence. But when it happens hundreds and hundreds and thousands of times, n is no longer equal to 1. Your sample size is no longer equal to 1. Your sample size is equal to thousands of people who are all reporting the same thing, and your degree of accuracy is relevant to scientific data. And so just because we don't study that here in the West, we see that topic as taboo. What we've created here in the West is a system where you have 2 schools of thought. You only live once, so focus all of your energy, all of your attention to getting as much as you can, making as much money as you can, having as much sex as you can, being with as many women as you can, doing as many things as you can, right? And then you have the Christian perspective, which is you only live once, but that life has to be completely and utterly devoted to God, because at the end of that life, He's going to decide whether you go to heaven or hell based off of the decisions that you made inside of that lifetime, right? And so when you look at it in this way, it doesn't make a lot of sense. When you look at it in this way, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But what you've set up is the perfect boundaries for control, right? Because in the religious aspect, you only have one life. You have this lifetime. You never know when you're going to die, but you have this set lifetime to prove to an imaginary being upstairs that you are worthy of being in heaven. Even though if we read the Old Testament, God himself isn't even worthy of being in heaven. And it shows he's not worthy of being in heaven, because Satan can just walk into heaven. So how can the most evil planet, or the most evil person in all of existence, just stroll into heaven like he owns the place? How does that even work? How does that even happen? It doesn't make any sense. But we're not going to get into that. That's for another video, or of the other videos that I've already made videos on that topic for. But when we've convinced you that you only have one life, and that life has to be devoted to God, and we, the church, represent God, what we've established is the grounds to say that your life needs to be devoted to me, because I'm the one who's connected to God. You can't get to God unless I'm here. And so if you want to get to God, you have to come through me, because I'm the church and I'm the only one that has the right teachings. And if you try to go anywhere else, you're going to burn in hell forever and ever and ever and ever. And the more people we can convince, the more thousands of people that we have to show you that you are wrong, to tell you that you are wrong. And because of that intense peer pressure, in the name of thousands of people telling you that you've picked the wrong decision, you're going to have all the reasons to fall back into just following the big governing body, which, to be frank, the church was the governing body for a very, very long time, right? So yeah, right? As far as the Far East and the idea of reincarnation, then that puts God and all of consciousness into this more large thing that we can't quite comprehend, which is kind of what I agree with, is that it's this big, large thing that we can't quite comprehend and don't understand completely. Because we can't understand it completely, right? Because the more we zoom in, the more confused we are. The more we zoom out, the more confused we are. So, we look off into the universe and we think that we're the only galaxy, just to find out that we're surrounded by, thousands, if not billions and trillions of other galaxies. And the farther we zoom in, we think that we're the atom, and these neutrons and protons are going to be the smallest particles, and we smash them together to find even smaller particles called quarks. And then we take these quarks and we smash these quarks together to find out that there's even smaller particles. So now we don't even know what exists, right? And the whole quarks, the idea of quarks, that there's this two up, one down spin quark, it actually is a whole sea of quarks. Okay, I'm geeking out. But here's the point. The point is that there's evidence to support that reincarnation exists, right? And so it is not this, the soul's path if we want to look at it, which is what a lot of Eastern religions kind of consider is the soul's path, the soul's path may be one of just learning and experiencing, right? And I think that that is significantly better of a interpretation as far as a spiritual outlook on life. I think that is a significantly better interpretation than there's a pissed off sky daddy that wants you to go to hell and nothing exists except for the physical matter. But then we break these physical matters and these little tiny subatomic particles start to show conscious shifts in expression based off of observation or non-observation, which kind of takes atheism and throws atheism for a loop. Pissed off sky daddy throws Christianity for a loop. And this is where I always kind of come back to, you know, it's ambiguous, right? And do we need to exactly know? No, we don't need to exactly know. I don't necessarily think that we could ever exactly know. But I do think that it is something that everybody can have access to. That's the reason why the name of the channel is called The Desert Spring, is that I believe that God is just this free resource that everybody can access. You had access to it before you were born. You had access to it throughout your life. You have access to it after your death. You know, there's a lot of near-death experiences that, you know, you can take them with a grain of salt, but once again, when all of these near-death experience stories tend to have these common specific traits across thousands of near-death experiences, right? If one person said, I ran into a unicorn and my unicorn was farting butterflies and rainbows and then I came back, right? Put that into the sample data. But if you follow that with 6,000 people who have very similar key point experiences, then you know you have scientific data that if not is to the reality of the universe, it is certainly to the reality of consciousness. And so yeah. Anyways, we went way off on a tangent. Let's get back to this guy convinced that that this Buddhist person is going to hell.
It's not okay. We have to go to hell. No, no, God did. Amen.
Yeah, we got to go to hell.
It's okay. Well, what love is that?
We would love people.
Exactly. We go to hell. We made that choice.
That's not true. I want you to get on the right way. What I'm doing, if I didn't say anything, it'd be like you were in a burning house and I didn't say anything.
I love your message already.
I love you, and I'm going to hear every step of the way.
I'm telling you, I love you. And
I love you.
I wish you well and happiness.
I want you to walk.
And I understand your message.
I want you to walk.
And we have our own journey. You have your own journey. So let us walk on each. Let us walk on each our own path. But at the end, we always come together.
Yes.
No, we're not going to come together. No, at the end, we're not coming together. I'm going to the right place. You're going to hell. That's not, at the end, we don't come together. No. I'm going to the right place. You're going to hell. Once again, with the Christianity, guys, I've made videos, plenty of videos on Christians telling other Christians they're going to hell. You know, and so that's why for me, it's hard to take these people serious because, you know, whenever I was Baptist, married to Pentecostal, the Pentecostals would always make fun of me that, you know, the Baptists had the wrong interpretation, that there was a good chance that the Baptist would go to hell. And it's just like, dude, like, oh my God. And from you know, a Mormon's perspective, the Pentecostals are going to be going to hell. And from the Catholics' perspective, the Catholics have this different thing where they believe that God basically can choose whoever he wants to send to heaven or hell. So just because you're not Catholic, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go to hell. It's ultimately up to God. But if God is as pissed off as he is on the day that he was, on the day that he decided to flood the entire planet, and you happen to catch him on a day when he's that upset, then maybe you will go to hell. So
Let him walk.
Or rather expose him. I'm not here to hate on you. I love you. I truly do. But I know right now you're walking your way to hell, but you don't realize it.
It's okay.
Walking your way to hell.
Okay,
Boy, you're going to hell.
Okay, if you're not okay with it, if you're not okay with it, then you take care of yourself, and we take care of our
Hey, man.
Alright? If that is
That's the truth.
if that's what you want to do,
You can't be out here judging.
Yeah, I guess judge.
There's no peace from it. The only peace comes from peace.
are you at peace?
I'm not peaceful.
Really? You at peace? Okay. May you be well, happy, and peaceful. Alright? May you be well, happy, and peaceful.
You look like looks can be deceiving, right?
He didn't look very peaceful right there. No, the thing is, let's talk about the topic of love, right? Because we've got this Buddhist person telling this Christian that he loves him. We have this Christian person telling this Buddhist person that he loves him. And, love is incredibly different. So I used to, whenever I was married, I loved my wife, all that kind of jazz, right? I used to think that I gave her unconditional love, because you hear that all the time in the media. Men give women and their children unconditional love, but men get no unconditional love in return. Here's a hot take that not a lot of people are going to agree with me on. Men are incapable of giving unconditional love to their spouse. Because the condition, okay, hold on, let me rephrase that. Already I pissed off a lot of people, sorry. But in general, unless you do a lot of work on yourself, unless you do a ton of inner work on yourself, and you genuinely rip up your entire life part to put yourself back together, it is impossible, especially out of the standard program, it is impossible for a man to give his wife unconditional love. Do you want to know how I know that? Because the condition is that she is his wife. The condition in a nuclear relationship is that she is a woman. The condition is that he happens to have romantic feelings about this woman. That's not unconditional love. That's conditional love. But that's what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches conditional love, right? The Bible says that God's love is unconditional, but then God goes and he kills everybody whenever he's bored, right? The Bible says that, and Christianity says that it's unconditional and it encompasses everything and everyone, but he's often killing everything, often killing everyone, and saying that he regrets making the planet. Right? And so he has a chosen people, a preferred people, and an out group. So how do you have unconditional love when he's clearly chosen a group of people to prefer over another group of people? That's not unconditional love. Unconditional love is, I love this adapter as much as I love you, and as much as I love my spouse, and as much as I love my mom and my dad, and as much as I love this laser pointer, and as much as I love this pen, and as much as I love this watch, and as much as I love this sticky note. That's unconditional love. It is love with zero conditions, with genuinely zero conditions. It is an I love you no matter what you do, no matter what you are, no matter what you express as, no matter who you express yourself as. If you want to express yourself as straight, if you want to express yourself as gay, if you want to express yourself as trans, if you want to express yourself as whatever gender, whatever being, whatever kind of whatever, it is I love you, full stop. No one expresses that. No one expresses that. And to be frank, I couldn't express that because I didn't love myself. I had these things. I cared about myself, but I had these things that I had done whenever I was a child that I genuinely hated. I had these decisions that I had made that I had genuinely hated about myself. Now here's the thing. As long as you hate something about yourself, it's impossible to love unconditionally. Because now there's the condition, right? So, the idea in Christianity that God loves you unconditionally, and don't get me wrong, people can throw around I love yous, that's fine. But there is this thing in the media amongst men that only women and children get loved unconditionally. and that the only person who loves a man unconditionally is his mother or something like that. That's not even true. Your mother doesn't even love you unconditionally. Why? Because the condition that your mother loves you is the condition that you are her child. She's not going to love a complete stranger unconditionally. She's not going to love and completely support a homeless person on the side of the street. She's not going to completely love unconditionally the car that's been misfiring and the transmission that's been shifting bad. She's not going to unconditionally love those things. And this is my point, is that there is this false narrative that exists that unconditional love is everywhere, and that basically everybody gets it except men. Or no, that's not what it is. Is that women get unconditional love, but men don't get unconditional love. Or in general, that God is unconditionally loving. I'm sorry, it's just not true. And yeah, when you take a hard look at that, when you take a hard look at the healing path, at the path where you're looking at your own crap, where instead of looking outwards, you look inwards, right? And if you get confused by that, because we've already heard it here, right? When you look, we're not fighting on the outside, we're fighting on the inside. When you don't look outward, look within. A lot of people get confused about that, right? What we mean when we say we look within is that we shut our eyes. Meditating. According to Christianity, it's demonic. Don't do that, right? God forbid you go to sleep ever. But the idea of meditating is to close your eyes and to sit with your thoughts, to sit with the ideas that were forced on you, right? To sit with the idea that when you did that one thing when you were a child and you were publicly shamed for it, that it wasn't your fault. It wasn't necessarily that you did something wrong. It's just that everybody else was judging you and making you feel like trash, when in reality, in that moment, you just wanted to feel loved and held and supported, right? And okay, I'm going to get off my high horse because I can get a little bit too passionate about that. So we'll go ahead and go back over here to hear this idea that everybody's loving each other, but the Christians are going to send God to hell. It's not unconditional love if it's now, don't get me wrong, love, you still have to have boundaries, because I've been, for a while, I've been like really just wanting to love everything completely and accept everything completely, with the understanding that I still have to have boundaries on what I believe is right and wrong, and what I believe is for me, not for me, right? And so it's been a fun journey, but this is where I talk about when you separate yourself from Christianity inside this big, massive, Christianity's the tree, you are the dirt. When the tree is pulled out, the dirt is still on the roots of the tree. So then you have to pick at the tree to reclaim parts of yourself. And it's that in and of itself is an ever-going journey of picking apart yourself away from the Christianity, away from the belief systems. And when you look down and you think you're done, you realize there's more roots in the dirt that broke off in the process of separating. And now you have to go down and dig into yourself and pull the roots out. It's a complicated process, and it can be a very messy process. But there's people who are out there. There's people who support you through it. The girl that I use, I'll go ahead and eavesdrop her name. You could probably Google it, but it's, let me put it on the screen here. It is Sarah. Oh, my keyboard died. That's right. I forgot I was in this entire thing. Okay. But her name is Sarah Evangeline, and she is a child, what is it? Inner child healer. She basically takes you through meditations to go look at your inner child and basically have conversations with yourself. Do you need her to do that? No, you can do it by yourself. But having a guide through the process, and that's the thing in general, you can always do these things by yourself. But having a person who's already been down that path, having the person who's already been down that road, can make the process hurt a lot less. When you go and you get business coaching, do you want to go to a person who's never grown a 7-figure business, or do you go to a person who has multiple 7-figure businesses? You go to the person with multiple 7-figure businesses because they've done it before, right? And you pay that guy, and paying that guy helps you out significantly faster. Because my journey, whenever I was going through my kind of deconstruction and all that stuff, it took me almost 3.5 years just to get to where I could find my footing again, and then I found this dude online who essentially, takes you from step A to step B for $500 or $1,000. And I was like, dude, that's so much cheaper, oops, kick the camera again. But anywho, let's get back to this. Sorry about that.
In addition, this Baptist man confronted the monks in the state of Georgia. Then,
a way of death and believing a lie. Folks, you're going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ one day, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, you're going to be there, just you and God. And the only thing that's going to matter is, do you know Jesus?
I love that the Jesus Saves sign looks so fucking ominous, like Jesus saves. Fucking black and red, what kind of what kind of what do you call it, what kind of conquistador shit is this? It's oh my gosh, it's just kind of crazy.
Christ in truth. Not if you walk 2,300 miles. Not if you believe we all come from energy. Not if you do all the good deeds that you can think of. Not if you go and you start to do good even though you're wicked. None of that can save you. Only Jesus, by his shed blood, who he died 2,000 years ago and rose again 3 days later in fulfillment of the scriptures which those Buddhists reject.
So the sign that he has says, what does it say? Say something. Jesus is the answer, will set you free. I think it says he will set you free. Only he can set you free. Jesus is the answer. Only he will set you free. I will say the Buddhists are being much more, mature about this entire interaction than the Christians are being, right? I personally think the reason why we have a lot of these wars in the world, a lot of these fights in the world, is because we have religions that support the idea of right and wrong, that support the idea of we are right, they are wrong, we are the in-group, they are the out-group, we are the Christians, they are the sinners, right? This guy's just out here to fight. That's it. I mean, look at his entire posture. His entire posture, which 70%, okay, this could be wrong. I have no idea. It's just something I heard. They say 70% of communication is nonverbal. Cool. But his posture is fighting. His posture is not, Jesus loves you, let me share my faith with you. His posture is, you're gonna fucking burn in hell. And I'm the one who's right. These people are sending you the wrong way. You're gonna fucking burn. That is literally his entire posture. And yeah, I mean, kind of look with what's going on. I saw an ad coming up for immigration. There was that immigration ad for when they were initially recruiting for ICE, where it was in the book of Isaiah. There were the part where Isaiah's like, here am I, Lord, send me. Like, they were making ICE, joining ICE, this godly Christian thing that's supportive of God and country, and that you should join ICE in hunting out all of these immigrants. And it's just like, and they're breaking into churches, and deporting pastors. It's just the stupidest shit. It's the stupidest shit. But Christianity is always going to support an in-group and an out-group. And as long as there is an out-group, there is always going to be a person to attack, a person who's wrong, a person who's fucked, right? Personally, I guess I'll switch it back to me. Personally, I think that this entire planet is a single organism, right? Think about your human body. Think Think about all the bacteria that live on your human body. Think of all the bacteria, the molds, the yeasts, all the microorganisms that are all over your skin, that are all over your body, that are all the way inside of your mouth, that are all the way down your gastrointestinal tract, that are all the way down. All of the different microorganisms that are separate from you. They are completely different beings from what you are, yet they serve a function in your life, right? The bacteria that's inside of your gut that helps you process a lot of milks that you can't process, right? So you have the bacteria that exist kind of in the lower gut, and the reason why people are lactose intolerant is because the lactose can't get processed by the cells inside of the body, and so they go down to the bacteria, and the bacteria are what's responsible for processing, because those bacteria that are separate from your being, they do not have your genetic material. They are completely independent beings, and we actually get them, I want to say, maybe from our mothers. I may be wrong about that. I have no idea where we get those bacteria, but in general, there's bacteria on the food that we eat. We eat it, and we end up with bacteria inside of our bodies. That's how life is, right? But these bacteria process the milk, break down the milk, and they use their laxi enzyme to separate lactose galactose. Nope, lactose gets into glucose and galactose. So they break apart the lactose for glucose and galactose. They give you the glucose. They remain with the galactose. I could be saying that wrong. I don't remember. And their byproduct is methane, right? The only reason why you can process milk in your lactose intolerance is because your body, your upper gastrointestinal tract, can't process that specific disaccharide. But there are different beings that are not a part of your body that can process it lower in your gastrointestinal tract. And so, but they're completely separate beings from you. But now if you take all of those bacteria that exist in that perfectly put place, and you put them inside your brain, now you have a really bad infection, right? And so, we are these very, very complicated machines. And when you look at these things under the microscope, when you look at white blood cells seeking out bacteria, you can see these things genuinely hunting for bacteria based off of, I guess chemical signals that bacteria are putting out or something like that. Maybe they're putting out proteins that the white blood cells are tracking. But if you watch videos of the process happening, you can see these white blood cells actively looking around like completely separate entities, completely separate beings looking around. Even though they're a part of you, even though they have your genetic material, they act like completely separate animals, and you can extract them from your body, put them on a petri dish, keep them alive, and grow them and have more of them as completely separate beings, and put them back in your body. And that's basically how we do the whole medical thing for the white blood cells for people who don't have a lot of white blood cells. But this shit's crazy, and it's complicated. Now imagine that there is a clump of cells inside of your body who recognize themselves as completely separate from the rest of your body. Think about that. And that little cell is completely separate. So what is it going to say? No, I want it. Give that to me. This is my sugar. This is my blood. This is my oxygen. You take my CO2. You take my fucking waste products. Fuck you guys. Right? You have this independent cell, and as that cell grows and grows and grows and grows, we have a name for that. It's called cancer. Because cancer sees itself basically as completely independent from the body that it exists in. So in a way, Christianity is a cancer. I'm not going to leave it there. I'm just saying, the idea is simple. Cancer exists inside of your body because it no longer works with the rest of your organism, right? You have this entire global organism that is this big, massive chemistry experiment that's going on, And whenever the tiniest part of you decides that it wants to be separate, or maybe it has the genetic material that it's not putting out the proteins or whatever, and it's growing, guess what? There are cells inside of your body, T killer cells, that are like, oh, he's gone crazy. We need to stop him before he goes too crazy. And they literally go and they poke him with apoptosis, and he just dies. So you have literally all this shit that's going on. You are completely and utterly unaware of it going on because your perspective is through these eyeballs. And that's why I say that life is just so complicated that we can't completely comprehend it. A lot of scientists say that we can. Simple, we can't. So let's go into this.
You support them only through him, the one who is the chief cornerstone and rejected by his own people, is salvation. And there's no other way around it, folks. You can laugh, you can scorn, you can mock, you can lip service to God, but at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter, and your fruit will show it. Good Hope rejects the gospel. We walked up and down your street sharing the gospel of Jesus.
You're going to fake talking so
Sharing
much.
the gospel of Jesus. Look, he's convicted.
You're going to pass out, man.
Already. Sharing the gospel of Jesus.
Man, wait for a commercial. His commercial break coming up in a minute.
His commercial break coming up in a minute is diabolical.
You can't talk forever.
You need to be born again.
Can't talk forever.
I offered to have a conversation.
More protesters heckled the monks. Jennifer Sandlin of Boing Boing would write the following: "It's almost like the protesters have completely missed the whole point of the Walk for Peace, which, as reported by the Asheville Citizen-Times, is to raise awareness for peace, loving kindness, and compassion across America and the world. According to many folks who were at the Good Hope event and witnessed the protest, it wasn't just hateful signs that the monks and the supporters had to deal with. Many commented on the Classic City News Post with their eyewitness accounts, stating the protesters yelled, made noise, and were generally the very opposite of peaceful or respectful. Not surprising." She would add, one of the attendees who posted on Facebook revealed that the protesters had also recently showed up in nearby Monroe, Georgia, when the monks passed through, and that the ringleader of those protests was formerly an educator at a quite large local college that was fired for having inappropriate sexual relationships with a student and a TA who ended up filing a harassment complaint against him. They'd mention a thread that they came across on the matter as well. Now, let me just pause it for a moment. Are you surprised?
No.
You can't be, right?
No.
You can't be. I can't be. I know y'all can't be. It truly is quite shocking that, from my understanding, Buddhism is not one to go out and do things that these Christian protesters will do. They are not ones to try and recruit. They are not ones to try and lure others. They are not ones to condemn other religions. It seems as though Buddhists like these simply want one thing: peace. Live and let live, it appears, is their mantra.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video there. The Buddhists, generally speaking, the Buddhists believe in reincarnation. So they believe in the idea of the soul's path, the soul's journey, where we come in and we basically, we continue to come in and we learn the lessons that we're learning from a lifetime, and then we die. We go back, and then we come back, and we learn more lessons, and we go back, and we die, and all this kind of stuff. And that every single time you die, they don't necessarily believe in a heaven and hell. Mind you, I've gotten all this information from one of my roommates that lived in Bhutan. He lives in Bhutan now, and he's a Buddhist. And so I sat down with him because I wanted to know absolutely everything about the Buddhist belief and stuff. But essentially that, there is a heaven and a hell in Buddhism too, but heaven and hell in Buddhism is not this static thing where once you go to hell, you will be in hell forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Their belief is that basically when you die, there's basically a tiered system. That's the wrong word for it. That's genuinely the wrong word for it. But there's this idea of a tiered system, bad on the bottom, really good. And depending on how your life was, depends on kind of where you land on that tiered system. And that's not unreasonable to believe, because in our living life, in our daily life, we have a tiered system, right? If you are an incredibly positive person, you're not going to go surround yourself with negative people, not willingly, unless it's like at the workplace. But if you are a very, very positive person, being around negative people are going to drain you. And so you're going to go and you're going to find other positive people to go be positive with. If you're an incredibly negative person, you're not going to go hang out with a positive person because it's going to drain you. It's too much positivity. You're going to go and you're going to find your negative people. So even here on this planet today, we have this tiered system of we will eventually just kind of navigate life until we find our group of people, and then we kind of just hang out with them. And so the idea is that when we die, our soul basically does the same thing, that we just kind of loft until we find our group of people and we hang out there. And if your group of people tends to be hellish, kind of mean, dark-centered people, then okay, then that's where you go, right? And so, you know, believe what you want to believe. I don't necessarily believe that. I just think it's much more complicated and we don't completely understand it. But you know, at the end of the day, living a loving life is something that is supported by Buddhism and supposedly supported by Christianity. But the expression of that is completely different, because in Christianity, because of the Old Testament God, because of the way that God acts when people sin, because of the idea of punishment, that we are worth nothing and that all of the good that we can do are nothing but filthy rags to God, because of these deeply ingrained ideas, it creates a system. Because of these deeply ingrained ideas, it creates this system where no matter what happens, you know, no matter what happens, the love that you're going to receive is basically going to be, you know, well, certainly it's going to be conditional love for one, but it's basically going to be contingent on, you know, did you accept the faith? Did you not accept the faith? What, you know, did you accept the right faith? Did you accidentally stumble on the wrong faith? All that kind of stuff. Whereas Buddhism, the belief is just that, you know, consciousness in and of itself is this all pure and loving thing, which I don't necessarily believe, because if consciousness itself was all purely loving, then you would look out onto the planet and see nothing but purely love, and that is not what you see. And so I think that consciousness is just this incredibly massive gradient of just whatever, I don't fucking know. And that we get to choose, you know, our free will in this entire thing is getting to choose whether we want to be happy, if we want to be mean as hell, if we want to support people, if we want to trash them on the internet, whatever. And so, yeah. So, okay, so that's the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Once again, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, all that jazz. But down in the description, you'll see my little email address. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have an interview with you and bring your story about walking away from Christianity, some of the damage that Christianity has done, how you've accepted that. The last interview that we had was with my sister. She's homosexual, and so she kind of briefly talked about the problems with kind of her wanting to come out, but then the Bible saying that it is an abomination to be that way, and so that her entire struggle in that. So anyways, thank you guys for coming back to the video. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, and get in contact with me. I'd love to hear your journey, and that is going to be it for today. Cheers. See you in the next one.